Hi there! In this video, we'll look at how to drive through intersections. The intersection is a high-risk area because traffic flow intersect here, and there is a lot of vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Crossing requires increased attention from the driver, his complete concentration on the road situation, and strict observance of traffic rules. There are two types of intersections, regulated and unregulated, depending on the availability and condition of traffic control facilities. An intersection where the order of passage is determined by traffic lights or a regulator is considered to be regulated. Accordingly, if there is no regulator and no traffic lights, or traffic lights are present by switched off or operate in yellow flashing mode, the intersection is not regulated. Now we can see a controlled intersection where traffic is regulated by traffic lights. If there are priority signs at such an intersection, they are not in effect at the time. Thus, the drivers of green and yellow cars drive through the intersection at a green traffic light, disregarding the traffic sign "no passing without stopping." At the same time, the drivers of blue and red cars stop at the red light and ignore the main road traffic sign. In other words, all drivers comply exclusively with the traffic lights. The intersection at which a regulator determined the procedure for passage is regulated. If a regulator works at an intersection, its signals takes precedence over the traffic light signals and the requirements of road signs and are mandatory. Traffic lights are often switched to yellow flickering signals at night to optimize traffic flow. In this case, this intersection is not regulated, and drivers must comply with the requirements of priority signs. There are two types of unregulated intersections: the intersections of uneven roads and the intersection of equivalent roads. The intersections where one road is the main and the other is the secondary are unequal. Accordingly, if the roads are equal, the intersection is equilateral. As we remember, the main road is paved. Therefore, in this case, the driver of a red car approaching an intersection on a secondary dirt road must give the road to a yellow car that is traveling on a paved road that is traveling primary. In addition, the primary road is the road marked with the appropriate signs. The priority of this intersection is established by the priority signs. On the main road, green and yellow cars move, which has priority over blue and red vehicles on the secondary road. At an intersection of equivalent roads, there is a right-hand obstruction rule, meaning that you have to give road vehicles approaching to the right. We approach an intersection, look to the right, and give way to a yellow car that is a right-hand obstacle for us. But for the green car, we are an obstacle to the right, therefore it will follow us. At any intersection, when turning right or left, the driver must give way to pedestrians crossing the roadway into which he is making the turn. This rule applies on any road, including a position when the driver moves on the main road. For example, the driver of a gray car gives way to pedestrians when turning right. And the driver of a green one when turning left. This rule applies if the drivers are on a secondary road. When turning right, we give the road to pedestrians. The same applies when turning left. And at the intersection of equivalent roads, when making a turn, give the road to pedestrians crossing the roadway to which we turn. The same rule applies to a controlled intersection when the driver moves at a traffic signal. In this case, we also give way to pedestrians when turning right or left. When moving at a traffic light signal, the driver of a red car must give way to pedestrians. The driver of the gray vehicle must do the same. Also, when turning, you must give way to a cyclist traveling straight ahead in the direction of traffic, just like the driver of a red car. In addition, you must give way to a cyclist regardless of whether he is riding at the edge of the roadway or on the cycle path. If it is necessary to give preference to vehicles traveling on an intersecting road, the driver must stop in front of the stop line of traffic lights so that he can see the signals. If not, he shall stop at the edge of the intersecting roadway without obstructing the pedestrians. It is prohibited to enter any intersection, including at a traffic light, allowing traffic if there is a traffic jam. It will force the driver to stop at the intersection, thereby obstructing the movement of other vehicles and pedestrians. In this case, a traffic jam has formed behind the intersection, and the driver of the red car will be forced to stop at the intersection when driving straight ahead. It will block the movement of vehicles on the crossing road, therefore driving straight ahead is now prohibited. In such a case, the driver is only allowed to enter the intersection when he proceeds to the right, to the left, or to a U-turn. If it is necessary to drive straight ahead, stop before the intersection, wait until the traffic jam has moved forward, and then only continue driving. Let's consider the rules of passage of unregulated intersections. Let's start with intersections of unequal roads, where one is the main road and the other is a secondary. When approaching such an intersection, you should pay attention to changing traffic conditions, road signs and markings. Remember the status of your road and the rules of crossing the main and secondary roads. A simple rule applies here. The driver of a vehicle driving on a secondary road must give way to all vehicles approaching this intersection on the main roadway, regardless of their further direction of travel. Thus, the driver of a red vehicle traveling on a secondary road must give way to green and yellow cars traveling on the main roadway irrespective of their further direction of travel. What if there are two vehicles on an equal road at the same time? In this case, a blue and a green car are on the main road together. How will they pass each other? Who will pass the intersection first, the green vehicle or the blue car? To do this, consider for the following rule. Before turning left and making a U-turn, the driver must give way to vehicles driving on an equal road in the opposite direction directly or to the right. We see a blue car moving to the left or turning around with the left turn signal on. Therefore, he must give way to the green vehicle driving in the opposite direction directly on the equal road. The green car will also pass first when moving to the right. Only then a blue car can make a left turn or a U-turn. You can remember this even more simply. If you and an oncoming vehicle are on an equal road and need to separate, consider whether you will be crossing the oncoming lane. If you do not, there is a traffic advantage. If you do, you have to give way. Look, the green car does not cross the oncoming lane when going directly or to the right and has the advantage, and the blue car crosses the oncoming traffic lane when turning left or U-turn and must give the road accordingly. The same rules apply on a secondary road. A blue car turning left or in a U-turn must give way to a green one, moving in the opposite direction on the equal road straight or to the right. The blue car may then also turn left or turn around. The procedure for passing oncoming vehicles on an equal road can be memorized by following the right-hand obstruction rule. What is this rule? To summarize, if the cars are in similar conditions, i.e., both on the main road, both on the secondary roadway, both moving at a traffic light or a control gesture, and both on an intersection of equal traffic, then the vehicle approaching from the right should be allowed to pass. How does this rule work in this situation? First determine, are the blue and green vehicles in similar conditions? Yes, both are on the main road, therefore it is possible to apply this rule. Suppose the blue car starts on the left and enters the intersection. You may even imagine that its driver has a very long right arm and pokes it out the right window. From which side is the green car approaching him? The right-hand side. That means he has to give his way. And to finalize this rule, let's look at this intersection from above. Before making a left turn or a U-turn, the driver of a blue car must give way to a green vehicle moving in the opposite direction directly or to the right. What if there are 4 vehicles at the intersection at once? To solve this problem, remember that the drivers moving on a secondary road must give way to vehicles approaching to the main road. Thus, until the yellow and green cars on the main road cross the intersection, the red and blue ones will stand by, and we can ignore them for the time being. We assume that they are not there. The vehicles on the main road will separate from each other according to the well-known obstacle on the right rule. The first is the moving green car. Then yellow car turning left is right behind it. The same rule applies to vehicles on the secondary road, i.e. the right turning red car will go third. And then turning blue one will go last. Let us simulate the case when a driver approaches an intersection of unequal roads where the main roadway intersects with a secondary road. Let us drive a green car moving on the main road and intending to go directly ahead. We have the advantage over all non-road vehicles and will drive through the intersection first. We will also be the first to drive to the right. Take the yellow car that is approaching the intersection on the main road and intends to turn left. Here, you need to give way to the oncoming green car driving straight ahead on the main road. He will be an obstacle to us on the right. Let him through and go through the intersection second. Now drive the red car up to the intersection on the secondary road. All vehicles moving on the main road must first be allowed to pass, regardless of their further direction of movement. Considering the need to turn right, we pass the intersection immediately after the green and yellow cars. For the blue car, we are an obstacle on the right, therefore he gives us the road. In the same way, we go third when driving straight. Once again, we approach the same intersection driving the blue car this time. We're going to make a U-turn. We give way to all vehicles on the main road. And considering that the red car turning right is an obstacle for us on the right, we pass it as well. And drive last. Let's discuss rail vehicles, trams and platforms running on tram tracks. They have certain advantages over non-rail vehicles when crossing intersections. The general rule is as follows. If the tram is in equal condition with a non-railway vehicle, the tram has the advantage regardless of the direction of its further movement. In other words, the tram will pass the first intersection because it is in the same condition as the blue car, both on the main road, so the tram has the advantage when moving in any direction. Let us analyze the case. In what order will be the vehicles move apart at this intersection? Tram A will pass the crossroads first, because it is on the main road and has the advantage regardless of the further direction of movement. Who will pass the other one? The popular answer is Tram B. Unfortunately, this is a common misconception. After all, trams have an advantage over non-rail vehicles only if they are in the same conditions. In this situation, tram B is on the secondary road and the blue car is on the main road. The conditions are not the same, so the blue car will pass the intersection second. Tram B is third. And the truck last. In cases where the direction of the main road at the intersection change, the main road sign is used with the traffic sign, direction of the main road. In this situation, some drivers become distressed and do not know how to pass such intersection according to the rules. The main mistake is that when approaching the crossroads from any side, drivers see only their sign and do not want to think about traffic signs placed on the other side of the intersection. Yes, the driver of the red car sees the main road sign but does not notice the sign under it, but the driver of the green car is also on the main road. In other words, they are in the same condition. Consequently, the rule right-hand obstruction applies between them. The driver of the red vehicle must give way to the driver of the green vehicle approaching him from the right on an equal road. What is the order of passing this intersection? We already know the algorithm for solving this problem. Knowing that the vehicles on the secondary road must give way, they are yellow and blue cars, we may temporarily ignore them. First, the red and green cars will pass each other according to the right-hand obstruction rule. The green car will pass first and the red one second. After that, yellow and blue cars will pass each other by the same principle. Yellow vehicle will pass the intersection third and blue vehicle fourth. Simulate cases where a driver approaches an intersection of unequal roadways where the main road changes direction. We drive a green car moving on the main road, changing its direction on the left. We are an obstruction on the right for the driver of the red car, which is also on the main road. Therefore, we have the advantage over him and over non-road vehicles on the secondary road and will pass the intersection first, irrespective of the further direction of travel. For example, we go left. Let us drive a red car approaching the intersection on the main road that is changing its direction to the right. The driver of the green car, which is also on the main road, is an obstacle to us on the right. We must therefore give him the road. We have the advantage over other non-road vehicles on the secondary road. So go through the intersection in the right direction at the second immediately behind the green car. Go straight ahead. Now drive the yellow car onto the intersection on the secondary road. The traffic sign direction of the main road informs us that there are green and red cars on the main road, which we pass. The blue car, like us, is on the secondary road to our left, so we are an obstacle to it on the right. Therefore, we pass the intersection third. And again, we approach the same intersection, driving the blue car this time. The traffic sign direction of the main road tells us green and red vehicles are on the main road. We give them the road. The yellow car, like us, is on a secondary road, but on our right. The yellow car is on our right-hand side. Therefore, the green car is also in the right lane, and it is the last one through the intersection. Similarly to the previous case, the tram has priority over non-road vehicles with which it is on an equal road, irrespective of its traffic direction. Can tram A and B move simultaneously in this situation? You already know the answer. No, because tram A and the car are in the unequal conditions, car on the main road and tram on the secondary road. Therefore, tram drive A cannot drive before the vehicle. Consequently, the intersection order will be as follows: tram B, after the passenger car, tram A third, and truck last. The well-known right-hand obstruction rule applies at an intersection of equivalent roads. When passing such an intersection, it is necessary to give the road to all vehicles approaching from the right. Therefore, the driver of a red car must give way to an approaching yellow car on the right. If there are three vehicles at such an intersection, first you must determine which does not have an obstacle on the right. As you can see, the yellow car has an obstacle on the right, so he will pass first, followed by the red car, and the last one will be the green car. Consider this situation once again, because there is a nuance here. If a driver without an obstacle on the right, in this case a yellow car, moves straight ahead or to the right, as in this case, he will always pass the intersection first. We've got that sorted out. But what if he turns left or turns around? We should solve this problem differently. The first to move will be the driver without an obstacle on the right, i.e. the yellow car. When the yellow car enters the crossing, it will have an obstacle on the right, the green car, and will not to be able to finish the maneuver until the green car passes the crossing. But the green car, in turn, is obstructed on the right by the red car. When the yellow car has entered the intersection, the obstruction on the right will disappear from the red car. Therefore, it will pass the crossroad first, followed by the green car. And finally, the yellow car can complete a left turn or a U-turn. Therefore, at a three-vehicle intersection with the three vehicles, the driver who has no obstacle on the right-hand side will pass the crossroads first when going straight or to the right, and last when going left or turning. The only exception to this rule is if all three vehicles turn left or make a U-turn simultaneously. In this situation, each of them will have an obstacle in the right. Therefore, the order of cars is as follows. The first vehicle to enter and pass the intersection is the yellow one, followed by the red one, and the last one is the green one. As for the tram, it will be on the equal basis with all non-rail vehicles at such an intersection. Accordingly, it will have an advantage over them regardless of which side of the crossroads it is on and in which direction it is moving. In this case, the tram will pass first, followed by the vehicles on the right-hand obstacle, i.e., the red vehicle first, and the yellow one last. When studying the rules for crossings, the question often arises: what if there are four vehicles at the intersection simultaneously? What to do in that case? Indeed, if you look at the given traffic situation, each vehicle will have an obstruction on its right-hand side. It's a bit of tricky puzzle. Let's see, where do you even find an intersection of equivalent roads? As a rule, in the outskirts of small towns, villages and countryside. They may be forest or field roads. In other words, this type of intersection occurs on roads with low traffic volume. Therefore, under realistic conditions, it is unlikely that a situation will arise where vehicles are approaching an intersection of equal importance from all directions simultaneously. If this occurs, it is not the rules of the road, but the rules of ethical conduct for drivers, i.e., the drivers separate by agreement. To do so, one driver, usually the most experienced driver, will wave to the other driver looking at him. The driver will go, followed by everyone else. Suppose such a driver is driving a red car. The driver of the green car is looking at him and needs to give a sign to pass. All other will move behind the obstacle to the right. The waving driver will be the last one to pass. Also, when passing an unregulated intersection, there are sometimes situations where precise adherence to the rules may cause the driver on the secondary road to wait indefinitely for an opportunity to pass the crossing, e.g. in heavy traffic. If you are the driver of a red car and want other drivers to let you pass, you should ask for it by giving two short high beeps or waving. In driver's language, this is a request to give way. If a truck driver wishes to allow you to pass, he will show down and give one short high beam signal, i.e., I see, I let you through. Once you have entered the main road, don't forget to thank him by turning on the hazard warning light for 3-4 seconds. Regulations do not specify the situation of simultaneous left turns or U-turns of oncoming vehicles. However, it is possible if these vehicles are on an equal road or are moving simultaneously at a traffic light permitting traffic signal. If the vehicles on the opposite side intend to turn left or to make a U-turn and are on an equal road or are moving at the same time at a traffic light which permits it, they may make this maneuver simultaneously without obstructing each other. In doing so, they will separate on their right sides, leaving the center of the turn to the right of themselves. Remember that you must choose the turn path not to end up in the oncoming lane. If a road has two roadways, the intersection has two intersecting roadways. If drivers turning left simultaneously drive apart on their right-hand sides, they will be in the oncoming lane. Therefore, at these intersections, turn left at a large radius, passing the oncoming vehicle on its left side on the right-hand side of the road. There are cases where simultaneously making a left turn or U-turn is problematic, e.g., due to the size of the vehicle. Here it is clear that one of the drivers has to give way, and you can use a short high beam signal or wave your hand "I see, I pass". At unregulated intersections where roundabouts have been arranged, preference in traffic is for vehicles already moving in the roundabout. It does not matter if the traffic sign "Make way" is installed when approaching such an intersection. In any case, driver entering the circle must give way. The unofficial rule here is that there is an obstruction on the left. Therefore, when you enter a roundabout, you should look left and give way to vehicles moving in a roundabout. But when you have already entered the ring, then you have the advantage. It is a circular roundabout. When driving through a roundabout, you may see some drivers turn to the right while others turn left. The question arises, what is the right way? A driver's first point to remember is that the turn signal must be understood by other road users. The second rule is that where the driver turned the steering wheel, that is where the turn signal should go. Entering most roundabouts on roads with right-hand traffic is a right turn. According to the rules, the driver must warn other road users before the return maneuver. In this case, you must switch on the right turn indicator. At the same time, there are roundabouts where the road approaches tangentially. In this case, other drivers may perceive turning right as a desire to turn right, which could lead to an accident. If we want to enter such intersection, we will turn left, so we turn left. Regarding turn signals when driving at the intersection itself, traffic at the roundabout is organized in one direction only, from left to right. Therefore, when driving around the roundabout without changing lanes, it is better not to activate the turn signal at all in order not to mislead other drivers. But if you intend to change a traffic lane and need to change lanes or move out of intersection, you are now obliged to turn on the indicator and change lanes according to traffic rules. Give the road to vehicles in the traffic lane to which you intend to change lanes. Other drivers will now be able to see what you are doing. In other words, you must switch on your turn signals when driving in a roundabout, when making a change and when exiting a roundabout. Sometimes the driver cannot determine which road he is on when passing through an intersection. No identification of the road surface due to dark times of day, mud, snow or other circumstances. At the same time, there are no priority traffic signs. In this situation, the driver should consider that he is on a secondary road. Let's consider the rules of passing regulated intersections. When such an intersection has a green traffic light or traffic is permitted by a regulator, the driver cannot start moving immediately. The driver must first give way to vehicles crossing the intersection and to pedestrians crossing the intersection. How do vehicles pass at such an intersection in which the green signal of the traffic light allows simultaneous movement? This situation is handled similarly to the corresponding principle at an unregulated intersection. The vehicles are in the equal condition in this case. The obstruction on the right rule can be applied accordingly. In other words, when turning left or around, the driver of a red car must give way to the driver of a yellow car traveling straight ahead in the oncoming direction. He is also obliged to let him through if he turns right. In this case, they will also be moving at the permitted traffic light. In other words, in this situation, trams are on an equal footing with cars. Accordingly, they are favored over non-rail vehicles irrespective of the onward direction of traffic. If a driver has a green light at an intersection where he can move forward, in all directions of course, let's assume that he will be turning left. He will see a red light as he leaves the intersection. Does this traffic light signal affect the driver of the red car? Of course, he does not. The signal is for the yellow car. Therefore, the driver of the red car must drive away in the intended direction, regardless of the traffic light signals at the exit. However, if there is a stop line or a stop sign at intersections before the traffic lights, the driver must follow the signals of each traffic light. In this case, the driver of a red car starts to drive at the green traffic light. However, when turning left, there is a stop line in this path. He must therefore comply, including with the requirements of the traffic light at the exit. At an intersection where traffic is regulated by a traffic light with an additional section when traveling in the direction of the arrow, which is activated in the extra section at the same time as the traffic light's forbidden signals, the driver must give way to vehicles traveling in other directions. Consequently, the driver of a blue car can only turn right into the switched-on auxiliary section with a red traffic light signal after passing other vehicles moving at the principal green traffic light. The question arises, must the driver of a tram moving into the auxiliary section give way? He has to. And there is why. As was mentioned before, trams have an advantage over non-rail vehicles only when they are on equal footing with them. What do we see in this video? A tram is moving at the green arrow in the auxiliary section. At the same time, the principal traffic light signal is red, while the non-rail vehicles on the intersecting carriageway have a green primary traffic light. It means that the conditions are unequal. Accordingly, the tram driver must give way. It is possible to use green arrows on a sign mounted at the level of the red traffic signals as you see it on the monitor to improve the capacity of regulated intersections along with traffic lights with the vertical signals. Such an arrow allows you to move in the direction indicated when a traffic light is prohibited. In doing so, the driver must take the rightmost or leftmost lane and give way to vehicles and pedestrians moving in the other directions. Please note, if a traffic light with an additional section is used at an intersection, the driver may only move towards the direction of its arrow when the extra section is activated. If a green light on a white background is used, traffic is allowed to move in the direction of the light at all times. It is the fundamental difference between them. Therefore, the driver of a blue car in the given situation is entitled to turn right at the green arrow and the red traffic light, previously allowing other road users to pass. Another rule concerning intersections is that traffic is regulated by a traffic light with an additional section switched on together with a red traffic light. Situation: a truck driver at an intersection intends to drive straight ahead. However, he is in the rightmost lane. A yellow passenger car has stopped behind him and wants to turn right at this intersection, but cannot because the lorry is in the way. In such a case, the lorry driver is in the lane from which the right turn is made, and his stopping creates an obstacle for vehicles following him in the same traffic line. Therefore, he is forced to continue driving in the direction indicated by the arrow in the extra section of the traffic light. It means that he must turn right. It is another difference between the additional traffic light section and the green arrow on the sign. While the arrow of the traffic sign only informs the driver of the possibility of turning right or left from the outermost lane at a red light and does not oblige him to do so, the additional section of the traffic light does, if stopping the driver creates an obstacle. Also, from the point of view of road ethics and respect for the other drivers, even at intersections with a green sign, try not to take the lane from which the corresponding turns is made, unless you need to go there. That's all for now. See you in the following video.